Good morning, everyone. Good morning. Commissioners, Chief McDonald, Executive Director, Mr. Django Sibley, Madam Secretary, Inspector General Matthew Barragan, Mr. City Attorney Carlos de la Guerra, and members of the public, good morning again. Today is Tuesday, February 3rd, 2026. It is 9:33 a.m. This is a regular meeting of the Los Angeles Board of Police Commissioners. Madam Secretary, please call the roll.
Good morning. Please let the record reflect Commissioners Sanchez Gordon, Shields, Scobin, and Tabor are present, and we have a quorum, Madam President.
Thank you. We welcome everyone attending this morning. All public comment will be heard during item 2 on the agenda. We will dedicate a total of 60 minutes to public comment. Members of the public will have 1 minute per agenda item for a maximum of 2 minutes total. At the request of the speaker will be given 1 additional minute for general public comment for a maximum of 3 minutes total. Members of the public, if you choose to participate in the public comment portion of the agenda, you may. You can participate in this meeting in a number of ways outlined on the agenda. Members of the public who participate in public comment are reminded that they can speak to any item on the agenda or a matter within the jurisdiction of the Board of Police Commissioners. Public comment is your opportunity to address the board, so you are free to express your opinion on matters before the board and to generally express when you disagree with other opinions expressed. However, directing your comments to other individuals who have spoken or attacking others who have expressed their opinions shall be deemed off-topic, and your public comment period will be concluded. Message for those attending meeting in person. These meetings are regular meetings between the board, the department, and key stakeholders. Meetings of the Board of Police Commissioners are open to the public. The state's Ralph M. Brown Act affords the public the opportunity to be present at the meetings, hear the presentations, and dialogue in real time, and provide feedback via the public comment period. During these meetings, there is a need for the board to carry out public business expeditiously without delays or disruptions. Members of the audience shall not engage in any conduct which causes an actual disruption of the meeting. Those attending in person are reminded that disruptive behavior will be cause for removal. If you disrupt this meeting, you will be provided with only 1 warning to cease disruptive behavior. If you fail to cease such behavior, you will be removed from the meeting. All attendees must be seated. Failure to follow this rule will result in a warning and/or removal from the meeting. With that, we will move to item 1, report of the Chief of Police. Chief McDonald, you have the floor.
Thank you. Good morning, President Sanchez Gordon, Commissioners, Inspector General Barragan, City Attorney De La Guerra, and Executive Director Sibley. Today's report will cover the prior week. I will highlight key events, share our most recent crime trends, and provide an update on our current staffing levels. During the previous week, the department experienced no officer-involved shootings. Year-to-date, we remain at 0 compared to 2 at the same time last year. Beginning on Friday, January 30th through Sunday, February 1st, the Los Angeles Police Department managed several large demonstrations across the city related to nationwide protests concerning ICE enforcement. Friday's event began, as many demonstrations do in Los Angeles, with a rally at City Hall, followed by a march through downtown streets. For most of the day, participants exercised their First Amendment rights peacefully. LAPD officers were present to facilitate that expression and to keep people safe, not to interfere with the message. As the day moved into the early evening hours, conditions changed. A smaller group remained near the Federal Detention Center, where the situation escalated. Acts of vandalism occurred and objects were thrown at officers. Federal officers reported that a door to the facility had been breached and that individuals were attempting to ignite materials near the roll-up doors. At that point, the situation shifted from protected speech to an immediate safety concern. At approximately 5:15 p.m., an unlawful assembly was declared, a tactical alert was issued, and additional resources were requested. Dispersal orders were clearly and repeatedly given. When those orders were ignored and vandalism and assaults continued, crowd management tactics were implemented. During this time, an MTA bus and an LADOT bus became trapped as crowds surrounded the vehicles. Mobile field force teams safely cleared both buses, allowing them to move and diverting traffic from the area, protecting passengers, operators, and officers. By approximately 6 p.m., officers assigned to skirmish lines were being struck by rocks, bottles, and fireworks. Based on the ongoing threat to officer safety, the incident commander authorized the use of department-approved less lethal options, including the 37mm launchers and the FN-303. These tools were used only after repeated dispersal orders failed and criminal activity continued. Throughout the incident, department drones were used to observe crowd activity and identify individuals actively committing crimes. One individual was observed using a slingshot to fire metal projectiles at officers and was subsequently identified and arrested. Order was restored and the tactical alert was lifted at approximately 10 p.m. There were 8 arrests in total for Friday, which included 5 adults and 1 juvenile for failure to disperse, 1 ADW on a police officer, and 1 juvenile for curfew violation. It's important to emphasize that the actions of a small group did not reflect the intent of the thousands who demonstrated peacefully earlier in the day. Unfortunately, those unlawful actions overshadowed the message of the larger group. The department also thanks President Sanchez Gordon for coming to the scene Friday night and observing firsthand the conditions that officers faced and the damage that occurred. On Saturday, January 31st, the city again experienced demonstrations related to ICE enforcement. As with the prior day, the event began peacefully, and as night fell, however, a smaller group again engaged in criminal behavior. By approximately 7 p.m., an estimated 300 to 400 individuals were blocking all lanes of traffic. Acts of vandalism occurred, and an impromptu concert developed within the crowd and was live-streamed. At approximately 8:45 p.m., commercial-grade fireworks were thrown at federal officers positioned on skirmish lines. Federal officers deployed gas and dispersal orders were issued. Although the crowd splintered, individuals remained in the area and continued to detonate fireworks toward both the federal and LAPD officers. Additional officers were struck by thrown projectiles and a rubbish fire was ignited nearby. Due to the escalating and dangerous behavior, an unlawful assembly was declared. Dispersal orders were again issued, and the use of the 37mm less lethal munitions and FN-303 were authorized. Additional resources were requested, and the city was placed on tactical alert. Order was restored, and the majority of the crowd dispersed by approximately 11 p.m. Later that evening, officers received notification from LA General Hospital regarding an individual reporting an eye injury attributed to a pepper ball round. Preliminary information indicated the injury may have resulted from actions taken by Department of Homeland Security personnel. An injury report was completed and the information was forwarded to the DHS commander for review.
Chief, give me 1 second, please. The individuals here holding up, I think it's Keith Porter's photograph. You're blocking the view from the people in the back. Could you just lower it for a little bit? I'm not speaking to you, please. And this is your first warning. This is your first warning. You are being disruptive since you entered this room. Okay? Next time you will be escorted out. So again, though, if you could just lower it so that the people in the back, our view is not blocked, I'd appreciate it. Thank you.
Okay.
You may proceed, Chief.
Thank you. Following Saturday's events, enforcement actions included 47 adult citations and 3 juvenile citations for failure to disperse, 1 report for assault with a deadly weapon on a police officer, 1 report for vandalism to a news vehicle, and 1 injury report related to the eye injury. Once again, the actions of a small group diverted attention from the broader message of the demonstration. Peaceful protest is protected and respected right in the city of Los Angeles. Violence, vandalism, and assaults on officers are not. When those actions occur, the department's responsibility necessarily shifts from facilitating expression to restoring safety. On Sunday, February 1st, the department facilitated the Stand with Iran rally, which drew an estimated 5,000 participants. The event remained peaceful throughout its duration and concluded with no incidents. This marked the 2nd consecutive weekend in which the department encountered violent and riotous behavior associated with protest activity. Throughout all events, the department remained fully compliant with the court order prohibiting the use of 40-millimeter less lethal during crowd management operations. In the absence of that system, the department relied on two authorized less lethal platforms permitted under department policy, the FN 303 and the 37-millimeter launcher, deployed only when legally justified and necessary to protect public and officer safety. On January 28th, members of our Narcotics Task Force conducted a coordinated investigation targeting a major drug trafficking operation linked to the Sinaloa cartel drug trafficking organization. Throughout a negotiated undercover operation, investigators arranged for the purchase of approximately 25 pounds of methamphetamine and 25 kilograms of fentanyl. Following an initial good faith transaction and the use of established investigative techniques, the task force was able to identify a stash location in the city of Paris. With the assistance of the Riverside County Sheriff's Department, a traffic stop was conducted, during which officers recovered a loaded firearm from the suspect's vehicle. A subsequent follow-up at the suspect's residence in Paris resulted in the recovery of an additional 365 pounds of methamphetamine. The subject was taken into custody and arrested for the sale of methamphetamine. This faction of the Sinaloa cartel is responsible for the large-scale transportation, distribution, and sale of fentanyl, heroin, cocaine, and methamphetamine throughout the city and county of Los Angeles. On January 27th, detectives from our gang and narcotics gun unit executed a search warrant in the Hollenbeck area involving a prohibited possessor believed to be stockpiling a significant number of firearms. The suspect had prior arrests related to firearms and, due to their criminal history, was legally prohibited from owning, possessing, or purchasing firearms. Working in close coordination with our Fugitive Warrant Section, Homeland Security Investigations, and Regional Illegal Firearms Trafficking Team, officers safely apprehended the suspect and recovered a large amount of illegal weapons and components. In total, investigators recovered 62 firearms, including 29 rifles, 15 of which were California-defined assault weapons, 5 shotguns, 4 of which were short-barreled, 19 handguns, 7 AR-style firearm frames, polymer 80 or P80 ghost gun components, firearm suppressors or silencers, and large quantities of ammunition and high-capacity magazines. Given the scope and seriousness of the violation, this case will be filed federally for multiple firearms and ammunition offenses. This is the kind of work our officers do every day, often without attention, to keep illegal guns off our streets and protect our communities. Between January 28th and 29th, the department's Major Crimes Division received 4 robocall threats directed at local schools, including the Eula High School, Granada Hills High School, Marymount High School, and El Camino High School. In each instance, the calls were delivered using a robotic AI-generated voice and included threats claiming the presence of pipe bombs, a suicide vest, and a rifle on school campuses. In response, LAPD personnel working closely with school staff conducted thorough searches of each location. All schools were cleared and no evidence of any explosive device or credible threat was found. Our detectives have learned that similar robocall threats have been reported nationwide over the last several days, including incidents in Wyoming, Washington, and Alabama. These calls appear to be part of a broader trend designed to cause fear and disruption. The department takes these threats seriously. Our Major Crimes Division is actively investigating these incidents and is coordinating with our federal law enforcement partners to identify those responsible. And all analysis on our crime for the week ending January 31st, analysis based on counts through the 31st, with the exception of homicides and victims shot. Overall crime continues to trend downward citywide compared to this time last year. Compared to year-to-date 2025, combined person and property crimes are down 16.1%, which represents 1,553 fewer crimes. Person crimes are down 7.8%, or 157 fewer crimes, while property crimes are down 18.3%, or almost 1,400 fewer crimes, and that's year-to-date. With respect to homicides, the city experienced a 12% decrease year-to-date compared to 2025, representing 3 fewer victims. Victims shot also remained down. Year-to-date, the city's experienced 8 fewer victims shot, or a 10.8% decrease compared to 2025 numbers. Aggravated assaults were slightly down year-to-date with 13 fewer incidents, a 1.1 decrease compared to last year. Robberies continue to show improvement year-to-date, down 17.9%, or 121 fewer robberies. Burglaries remain down significant year-to-date, declining 25.3%, excuse me, or 257 fewer incidents compared to last year. Residential burglaries are down 26.3%. Non-residential burglaries are down 23.7%. And motor vehicle thefts continue to show strong improvement. Year-to-date, motor vehicle thefts are down 28%, representing 531 fewer thefts compared to last year. We continue to monitor crime closely and respond with targeted deployments and focused enforcement where it's needed most. On our personnel strength, our sworn personnel as of February 2nd is 8,727. Our civilian professional staff decreased to 2,484, and we have 333 reserve officers. That concludes my report to the Commission this morning, Madam President.
Thank you, Chief. Before I move forward with any questions from any of the other commissioners, I do have a question, Chief. Chief, I understand that you gave a media interview on Friday, and you talked about your position on the enforcement of the California law banning face coverings. Can you please explain to the department's position to the commission and to the community, please, to the public?
Sure, thank you. We had a press conference that discussed our year-end crime stats and then what we're looking at for the year ahead. During that, I was asked a question about our position on enforcement of new state law that would mandate arrests of ICE officers who are operating with masks. Asked my position on that. I did not believe, well, first of all, it's being held up on a stipulated agreement in the federal courts. So we're waiting for some outcome from that to be able to see what the path forward will be there. As far as my position on it is that it would be detrimental to public safety in Los Angeles for...
Excuse me, excuse me. Excuse me. Excuse me, please. You may go ahead.
Detrimental to public safety to have police officers engaging with federal agents while they're doing their job, excuse me, in the streets. And so
Okay, just a moment.
Yeah.
Sergeant of Arms, could you identify the person that keeps interrupting the chief? Okay, thank you. You may continue, Chief. You may continue, Chief.
Thank you. To have LAPD officers on duty responding and essentially trying to effect an arrest of another agency, armed federal agents, while they're performing their duties would be detrimental to public safety for the officers, for the agents, for the public and the environment. The issue, I don't believe, and I mentioned that I did not think it was well thought out. You have a situation where potentially that could be found unconstitutional relative to the impact on federal officers. State officers largely were exempt from the law, and then local officers are the ones that basically are subject to the law, and local officers, LAPD in particular, we do not mask up. So I'll wait to see what happens with the federal judge's decision on that.
Thank you, Chief, for your response. Okay, we're going to move on. Commissioner Shields, do you have any further questions regarding the chief's report?
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Chief, for reporting. It's good to know that for most of the demonstrations, they were peaceful, but as you said, it is very disappointing to the overall message being done of what kind of transpired in the evening hours. Were any, excuse me, sir, that is your first warning. And were any, and again, I think this detracts from the overall message of the people who remain after dispersal orders are given and then continue to throw bottles, rocks, and fireworks at officers. Were any officers injured during any of the demonstrations?
We had 2 officers injured. Both have been treated and returned to work.
Thank you. And sir, so some of the folks watching as things unravel, can second guess, why were people not responding sooner or, things like that. So how, and I understand that the city had to go in like tactical alert. How does that impact the department's resources overall? And how do you make the decision, especially when we see, the area around the Federal Detention Center being, set on fire and kind of a lot of havoc, which is exactly the image that people want to see across the nation to justify the Trump administration's actions of trying to send in the National Guard. Again, it's defeating the purpose when we want less federal intervention to see this unfolding in our city. So how is it, that you determine, and when is it that the officers are there to, try to bring order to that situation?
Well, thank you. The federal officers who were there at the building, their charge is to keep the building safe. In this case, on Friday night, it was reported that the protesters were attempting to breach the building, get inside, as well as light a dumpster on fire. When situation evolves into one that is riotous, one that is unsafe for people in the environment, or a call for help is put out, we respond. Our goal, when we get there, is to restore order, separate the parties, and be able then, if we can safely do it, to arrest lawbreakers at the scene and be able to set the tone for peace moving forward. It is a major drain on our resources. Certainly anytime we have to declare a tactical alert and amass mobile field forces or tactical support elements from around the city, it does drain our ability to be able to provide the services we otherwise would for the rest of the city. But it's something that's critically important because we have a situation like this where we have the potential for some extreme violence. So our hope is to be able to get there as quickly as we can with sufficient forces to be able to safely restore order.
And you reported that the department was in compliance with the court's injunction relating to the 40 millimeter not being used during the demonstrations. Were there any issues involving reporters at these demonstrations during the last week?
Not that I'm aware of, no. And it's been reported, what's been reported has not been in my experience. So we work very hard to protect reporters and their right to be able to report. And
The person on the third row in the corner, yes, you are being warned. This is your first and last warning.
Thank you, Chief.
thank you.
Okay, we move on to Commissioner Tabor. Any questions?
Thank you. I wanted to go back to the chief's comment about the mask. I think, as I understand it, that there's also the issue, and you didn't discuss it while you were explaining the department's position, but this notion of, or I should say notion, this law, I'll describe it in that sense, of local authority relative to federal authority.
Right.
That one of the prohibitions we have as a local agency is the inability to determine how the federal agency can operate within the space.
Right.
I think it's important that as we look forward, that we recognize and explain what our limitations are under current both constitutional and federal law. And should the courts or the Congress decide to change our ability or decide to remove the use of masks or face coverings by any federal agency, then our ability is changed, and we can then either consider the state's law or a policy of our own. And my concern is that we need to be clear so that the public knows why we're not taking any action in this respect.
All right, thank you, Commissioner. Yeah, as mentioned, through that stipulated agreement, there would be, there was an agreement that there would be no arrest for that offense until the federal judge came back with their perspective on this.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
No further questions.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Scobin?
Yes, thank you. I have a few questions regarding less lethal.
Sure.
Recognizing it's really our first weekend after the injunction. Out of curiosity, the FN 303, is that accessible to all officers, or do you have to get special training to use that?
No, that requires special training, and metropolitan officers are trained in that and respond.
And was this widely used before the loss of the 40? Or is this?
Now, the 40 is a more effective tool for us to be able to target specific individuals who are assaulting either officers or other people in the environment. And so the 40 was favored in that regard. The 40 is still used, and the weapon that's most appropriate to be able to de-escalate a situation in the field where somebody is not at a crowd control situation, but somebody who has a knife, a pipe, a bar, a bottle, or something like that, before, you have to escalate beyond that. And the last thing we want to do is escalate to a deadly force situation. The 40 millimeter has saved so many lives because we were able to take somebody into custody at that lower level of force.
Should we expect to see the FN 303 more present then?
Yeah, since we don't have access to the 40, the FN 303 is an alternative option. We're looking at other options that are available as well in the field.
My follow-up question on the 37, recognizing now that the 40 is not in use, the 37 is our primary crowd control tool. It's a skip round,
Right.
as I understand it. So obviously very different than how the 40 is used. Do we currently have officers now equipped with the 37 that may not be as familiar with it because the 40 isn't at play?
Thank you. Anybody who is going to be using it in the field has been trained to use it and is proficient in its use. As you mentioned, it is a skip round. It is not a target-specific round, so you skip it off the ground in order to be able to move a crowd after an area has been declared closed and an unlawful assembly declared. So there is plenty of warning. There is an access for people to safely leave the area provided, and a considerable amount of time for them to be able to leave the area before any of these tools are used.
I think now more than ever, with the current climate that we're in, the injunction in place, I think it's critical that we as a department are, after actioning these situations. There were some videos that circulated around that, accused officers of shooting directly at people with what was called a 37. So I think it's important that, that we're looking at those situations carefully and holding those accountable, and most importantly, training to make sure that we mitigate those in the future.
Yes, sir. Just for clarification, we do very much do that. We do after-action analysis on uses of force whenever they occur, and as you're well aware, you see the most significant ones very, very in-depth. We have access to body-worn cameras on all people in the field that we have deployed, so we have the ability to be able to analyze that and then take appropriate action based on that, whether it's training or worst-case scenario discipline.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anything further from any commissioner? All right. We have a lot of people that want to speak today. We are going to have public comment for 60 minutes. With that in mind, I'd like to give everybody an opportunity to speak, so we're going to reduce it to 2 minutes so that everyone can speak. We're going to reduce it to 2 minutes so that everyone has an opportunity to speak. Not everyone is going to speak, but we're going to try to make that happen. And my first question is, excuse me, you are being disruptive. The gentleman in the red sweatshirt, one more time and you will be asked to leave. Yes, we have 30-plus cards. Okay. All right. My first question is there a family member here, family member representing Mr. Porter? Okay. Call the first person, please.
The first speaker is T. Carter.
Hi, I'm here primarily to speak to. Thank you, guys. I'm here primarily to speak to Chief McDonald. I don't have any profane words to provide to you, but I met with you the week of November 4th. I have the visitor card here at the mayor's office on the 4th floor. We met. I gave you some documents regarding one of your detectives continuously using my name in criminal cases against people and females I never met with. I went to get an apartment. I was denied. This detective, Detective Dumanis, is still working for LAPD. When the LAPD report came back, it says my complaint is unfounded. But my name is in 3 criminal reports. Someone had to put my name on this report. So to say that my matter is unfounded, it seems to be a little discriminatory, and it doesn't seem ethical of what's going on in internal affairs. There was a lieutenant in internal affairs labeling Hispanics and African American people names and doing different things like that. He was working at the time that this position came through. I gave you a copy of this. You asked me, was my phone number on there? You said someone would contact me. So I'm here to let you know no one has contacted me since I met with you on November on the 4th floor. I have your detail operations. I have their photo. I have a photo with you. I also went back to the mayor's office. A police officer there gave me a declaration that I met with you. So I'm here to find out who can I speak to in your office. When I call your office, there's a female. She hangs up the phone. I don't want to say your extension. I don't want to put the people, extension 0150. She hangs up the telephone. I spoke to your lieutenant in your office. He said, oh, that black guy's still calling. So you have people in your office directly up under you doing unethical things. And I don't know if you're directing that or not, but you don't remember me giving you this November 4th in the elevator? So I understand you could have given it out for someone to look at, but I ask you if you would oversee it because it still hasn't been done. And this detective is still working for LAPD. And he has me listed in 3 criminal cases, and he told me nothing will ever happen to him. So I'm here today to figure out who can I speak with on your staff while I'm here. Because when I call, they hang up the phone and call me niggers. So that's why I came down. I didn't use any profanity against you. I'm just trying to get assistance. So who can I speak to in your office? But would that be the lieutenant that called me to say that's a black guy or a different person?
There's 2 gentlemen in the back that are
Okay.
going to help you, okay?
Thank you.
And I'm hoping that
And at
this
some
will
point,
be resolved.
at some point, will you be able to do a follow-up in case they do not help?
Okay.
Or should I
can
come back
see-
here? All right, thank you.
Thank you very much. Next.
Next, we have P. Miller on Zoom.
Can you hear me?
Hi, yes. What items would you like to speak on?
All items?
Okay, you get 2 minutes.
Yes, thank you, LAPD officers and Chief McDonald, for your continued dedication to your profession and your community. Commissioners' code of conduct must be enforced at meetings. Difference of opinion and passion for advocacy is expected, but no commissioner should be assaulted for who they are married to or their personal life. No community member should be unsafe coming to a meeting, and no reporter should be attacked. Thank you to the California Post. Perhaps your investigative reporting will answer questions. Is it true? Are masked armed protesters being paid to incite chaos and destruction? Are speakers being paid at any council meetings, commission meetings? If yes, by whom? Follow the money. You're on the right track. Commissioners,
Hey, the speaker, the lady that's touching her neck, you are being disruptive. This is your first and last meeting. The gum.
hello?
Yes, you may continue.
Thank you, Commissioner. Sanctuary cities may have started out well-intentioned, but has given sanctuary to violent criminals and possible terrorists awaiting the world stage. Law-abiding citizens need to have sanctuary in their own city. This selective enforcement by politicians has literally gone over the cliff, only to be followed by selective reporting from many LA reporters before the facts are in. You know, most reasonable people They want any criminal, illegal migrant convicted of human trafficking, child molestation, or murder to be deported, period. Surely any reasonable person would agree the safest way for that to occur is some sort of safe handover in prisons before they are let loose again on the streets of LA. Perhaps the California Post could give clarity on this issue. Again, just the facts. How many have been apprehended in LA and California? And again, in closing, it is time to defund any nonprofits inciting chaos and destruction.
Next speaker, please.
Andrew Grabner.
So you have time for the chief to talk for 12 plus minutes, not including your questioning, but we all need to be limited to 2 minutes so that you can go into closed session and sit on your hands for hours because you're afraid to come out and actually give your opinion, which is every week. Every shooting is in policy. It was a miracle that the Linda Becerra Moran one was partially ruled out of policy. Not fully, but it was at least partially ruled out of policy. I wonder if the officer is ever going to face any consequences. Anything. Or is he just going to be out on the streets terrorizing people? I already shot, two people last year? Something like that. So, yeah. And, of course, again, McDonnell is, you're protecting ICE, aiding and abetting them repeatedly. He's saying all kinds of really messed up shit. None of you have anything to say whatsoever. You have the power to fire him. You can fire him. You don't even have to get city council or the mayor to do it. You can do it. They can override you, but at least get your opinion out there. And say that McDonnell should not be chief of police for the LAPD while doing all this stuff. And again, you've got LAPD, you're all acting so oblivious about all the stuff with the press when LAPD has multiple court injunctions and restraining orders regarding attacking and violating the rights of press. By the way, that's an actual violation of one's freedom of the press, is LAPD shooting them with less lethals and arresting them. That's an actual violation of freedom of the press, for those who are wondering.
Next, we have Star over Zoom.
Good morning.
Good morning. What items would you like to speak on?
All items, please. Thank you.
2 minutes.
Thank you so much. Chief, we just, on behalf of the community, would like to thank you for all your efforts and support for our communities and ensuring that our safety is priority. Like you said, the protest started peaceful, but of course, we knew that wasn't going to last long. So thank you to all of LAPD that were out there. It's unfortunate what took place. We need more drones, Chief. We need more face recognition. We're tired of being terrorized in our own neighborhoods. We really, really are. So, our safety is of the utmost importance here. And thank you for your support for LAPD. We in the community support them and want them. Nobody speaks on our behalf, not the people that are attending these meetings. Thank you to some news outlets and one that got attacked there last week by the same person who just said LAPD is reporting news broadcasters. Well, he was actually attacking one of the reporters that was there last week, right there in that meeting. Thank you for exposing names and faces of the agitators and that then walk across the street to another meeting and do the same thing. So thank you, LAPD. We support you. We need you. And God bless the LAPD. Thank you.
The next speaker, please, Jasenka Fasiska.
Hi, this is my first time here. So far, I've heard you guys discuss protecting property, protecting trash cans, protecting you all, but I haven't heard talk about protecting the people that are here. I've heard a couple plants come up here that are refusing to show their face in public, speak on your behalf. But the majority of people here that have showed up in this room are really tired of the BS. I'd like to know, since you guys are not really concerned with protecting brown and black people in Los Angeles, what about the white homeowners? Because I'd like to know, how are you materially protecting us? As a woman, I do not feel safe in this city with masked men marauding the city. There are women going missing. There's women going missing. There's masked men marauding these streets every single day, violently attacking our communities. And you guys are over here talking about some federal, you guys are waiting for some decision. No. Hi, Jim, could you look at me? Thanks. I would like to know how you are protecting me in a material way. Please explain to me, in what ways are you protecting women like me from being kidnapped off the street by masked men or anybody? How are you protecting people like Keith Porter, who are just out and about with off-duty ICE agents shooting them? In what ways are you materially protecting us? Because it sounds to me like you're protecting property, and that's it.
Next, we have Philip. Philip over Zoom.
All items, please.
Okay, 2 minutes.
I see there are many items on the agenda for donations from the foundation, whoever they are, but no one here has discussed the donations received that did not follow procedure and were not reviewed by this board, such as the 24 Christmas party costing lots of money and our chief of police attending. If you ask me, that's the opposite of setting a good example. I also do not feel our chief is setting a good example when he promotes misogynistic people. People that only care about their career and moving up the ladder, but do not care about the people they serve. LAPD has a history of toxic leadership, and it is still a problem today. It's a shame that the real issues never get discussed. Silence is acceptance. Bring back the blue line flag. Morale isn't very high right now. The department and our city suffers when good people do nothing. Make the LAPD strong again. Make the LAPD respected again. Hold people accountable for their actions. Please read the letter submitted for today's public comment from Voices for LAPD. Every week, it's a circus there, and Commission President Sanchez Gordon is the weakest and most uneducated on LAPD policy that I've ever seen. Commissioners, why can you not show up to every meeting? There is always someone absent. Your continued absences tell us how little you care about Los Angeles. If you cannot dedicate yourself to these meetings and your duties, resign. God bless the LAPD. Yield the rest of my time.
The next speaker, please, is Jonathan Foster.
So there was no OIS. That's been pretty good. You can't vote on a position because you have to have a full commission to do that. And I'm going to play a recording of Briggs talking about the 21 divisions, and I'll have to let this boot up. So let's talk to the new guy. Dr. K, can you define a reasonable officer for me? The 1989 Supreme Court decision rests on a reasonable officer. Can you define a reasonable officer? And also, since you're new, you're guilty of everything the commission's ever done wrong. You just got here, you're guilty, unqualified. And I've learned you're a mayor and you don't amount to a damn thing that matters. You've been around in government. Man, what a joke. And so let me play this, if I can get this to come up. I can cut down our time, cutting down the public's ability to comment is really also disgusting. Here we go.
The first commitment I undertook as commissioner was to visit all 21 divisions of the department. I'm happy to.
He went to all 21 divisions of the department. What did that do for Linda Becerra Moran? What did that do for Yong Yang? After listening to the comments about Linda Becerra Baran, I realized I forgot to say the net gun. The net gun could work, could have worked. It's not going to work every time, I get that, but it could have been something, could have been different. And you said a 5-0 decision on her. This commission needs to re-examine Gresario Mack and Eric Rivera and see what vote we get. And the last one on 5A, there was body worn cams, and the in-car video got moved to another one. So what they should do is take the cams that are unique and rare interactions and have every officer see this. And before they go out, they do an hour of simulation.
The next speaker, please, Tran San Ha.
You have nothing to do today but listen to the people. All this is about is us, not you.
Mr. Foster, you are being disruptive. Thank you.
What does it matter? You have all day to listen to us.
Sergeant of Arms, would you please remove Mr. Foster?
By the way, tell everybody to shut up when they're not talking, too. Like you did last time.
You may proceed.
Good morning, Chief, and good morning, everybody. Every weekend, if you go to the Huntington Beach Pier, you see the big sign I put on the right in front of the pier. I say, my name is Tran Son Ha. I am a lot better than the President United States of America, like Donald Trump. I protect the U.S. government. I protect all American people and all human rights around the world. So all those MAGA in Huntington Beach, they run away from me. You know why? Because they lied to America. The USA controlled by worldwide corporation. They control the U.S. government. They control the USA Supreme Court. They control the USA Medicare Central. They control healthcare system. They control Google Corporation. They do all kinds of damn wrong to American people, and everybody's scared to talk about it. If you talk about that, you know what they do? They shut down your phone, they shut down your internet, and they don't want you to talk. So I'm lucky. I am a person very lucky. I think the whole world follow me for the human right. So pray for me, and I wish that everybody, and I cannot do this job, but I come here with the LAPD headquarters. I want everybody here and help me and work with them, and we do, like I say, I work with Mr. Jim from the beginning. I say, help me, we fight for better America. We protect American people and human rights. So that's what I'm here. I need all.
Call the next speaker, please.
Thank you. The next speaker, William Good.
Good morning. So Jim McDonnell and the LAPD is covering up a rapist cop's actions. His name is Gabriel Espadas. A couple years ago, he showed up at a call, put a woman on a psychiatric hold, stole her phone number because he said in his text message he thought she was hot. As soon as she got out of the psychiatric hold, he contacted her. 2 days later, he was having sex with her. Not just having sex with her. In his own text messages, he says he fisted her and then had anal sex with her and then repeatedly pressured her to have sex with dogs. An obsession that he has, because when I look at these text messages, he sent these messages to lots of women. The LAPD knows this. He took advantage of a woman who was mentally unwell. It's called rape. And he should have been prosecuted. But he wasn't prosecuted. Instead, they covered it up. And even when they put in a complaint against him, it was for inappropriate sex. Just inappropriate sex. Not rape. Not rape. And they didn't even have the decency to get this guy decertified by the state, so he could be working as a cop somewhere else. He'd be working for ICE. I know he worked for SpaceX. He got a security clearance. He shouldn't have had a security clearance with these allegations against him. And they're not just allegations. Again, I look at the court documents. I saw his text messages. All of this is true. All of it. And yet nobody does anything about this. You know, Jim's new media strategy is to bring in right-wing outlets, give them special access that nobody else has, because, they want to show the real truth. Well, why don't you guys talk about Gabriel Spadas, the rapist cop? You guys won't mention that. Nobody mentions that. This fucking guy needs to be prosecuted. It's up to you to do something. You guys, all of you, is responsible, and every member of the press out here, this guy needs to be prosecuted. Do it today.
Thank you. The next speaker, Audit LA.
Good morning. I want to just 2 points really quick. The first one is that anyone that's in Scientology Sea Org, all the way from David Miscavige on down, the people who we talk about every week, they work over 110 hours a week for $47 a week. And these people the reason why they're not charged or in trouble for, basically modern day slavery is because they consider themselves ministers, even though they're really not ministerial, because they're people who are doing all the hard labor, and they're doing horrific hard labor. They're being held captive. And, but I want to make the point that they're mandated reporters, right, if you're a minister. And I want to ask you guys to look in your records and tell me how many times in all the history of LAPD and Scientology being here has there been any report from Scientology for rape, pedophilia, assaults, and anything that's mandated to report. And it's going to be zero, because they're not allowed to do that. And if anyone calls the police from inside, they are automatically excommunicated. Okay, and this is, ridiculous. So, but they're on your CPAPs. They sit and they advise the police with modern day slavery going on and a fake ministerial. My next question, and I wish the host, please, Carrie, please look into this stuff. The next question is for my friend Nora, who grew up horribly abused in that blue building. Her story is unbelievable. It's unbelievably horrific. Okay, and she wants to know why, she hates ICE. She's not a Trumper. She's not an ICE person. So this is not. But she wants to know, why is Scientology exempt from the ICE raids when other churches aren't? Okay, so there's a lot of people, they hold their documents captive, and it may actually be a rescue mission for these people inside. Why are they exempt? Can you please look into that?
The next speaker, Laura. Laura, FM.
I'm going to attach myself to that as well. I'm here. My war is to take down Scientology. Again, you have people, indentured servants, only getting paid less than $47 a week. It's not the point. They are literally being held captive. Jim, they don't have access to their own passports. They don't hold their own identification. But yet you have people like Janet Whelan on your fucking CPAPs. Like, she's getting paid $47 a week to make sure she's hearing what the city needs. And then what does she do? She goes back and tells David Miscavige and everybody that's a cult member in the Scientology cult how they're going to infiltrate the city. I saw you guys get $250,000 unmonitored donations. I guarantee you Scientology's fucking donating in that. How is this okay? There's so much going on. Every single indentured slave in that cult organization does not have accessibility to their own documentation of being in this fucking country. I was not allowed to have it. Kirsten Peterson, who's in Office of Special Affairs, Susanna, these are people that are in emails. We are literally doing the investigation work because nobody's fucking doing it. And what are we finding? clear messages that are literally infiltrating the LAPD. How can we donate? Come to our, Hollywood Christmas parade. Come to the shrine, inviting members. I understand there's certain people that don't want to have anything to do with this cult, but if you're accepting money and you're allowing ICE to hide people, things like this, like who are you supporting? You're literally supporting a group organization of indentured slaves. I was a born and raised child in this. My mother and father are in this.
Thank you. The next speaker, please. Charmaine Elizabeth Johnson.
Hello, I'm in so much pain because I've been injected with a chip and they're activating the chip in my body. I nearly passed out this morning. When I went to the hospital for this chip that they've injected in my body, the police were driving past to negate me getting the treatment that I am to get the chip out of my body that they've injected. I came to a meeting on 118 and reported attempted murder with chemicals in my consumable, Fiberglass. It turned out that the detectives in the LAPD are hiding the attempted murder. They've actually, the officers who took the specimens here, actually the adulterated specimens, have actually taken them and said it was shampoo, as if I'm a simpleton and I've got no sense. They gave me an advocacy card to call because they're actually preventing me from getting accommodation. They gave me an advocacy card to call. When I called, she said, we deal with funeral services and knocked out teeth. It's bad. Did you get the lawsuit, for the chief? Did you get the lawsuit that I took to the mayor's office? Have you received that lawsuit? No? You didn't receive the lawsuit? Well, this is another lawsuit that's for the assistant chief of police. It's the same lawsuit. And if you could serve that to him, the information is on that lawsuit. The attempted murder and all the extensive list of police reports that have been filed. I've been chased and called a nigger with a blade. I've been sliced, injected on the streets, under camera. All these events have happened under camera.
Thank you. Thank you. The next speaker, please. Patricia Mendoza.
Excuse me, your 2 minutes are up. Thank you. Patricia Mendoza? Thank you.
Good morning to all of you, commissioners, chief, police officers, and the public. Just wanted to explain that last week I was here. You have, President, you had me removed from the meeting in the building. It's okay. I don't take nothing personal. I'm a big girl, and I was a board member of the neighborhood council, sat 4 years in the public, and then 4 years as a board member of my community. So I let the historical Filipino town and the Cuban people take our money. It's okay. A few months after, Front LA Times came out with all neighborhood councils doing fraud. I was a board member and president of the Title I in LA Unified School. And I'm one of the parents that fought for the land to be bought from LA Unified School to build Roy Ball Learning Center, high school, Temple and Baldry. Not happy with the name. Worked in the law office for 30 years, 5-star criminal attorneys that tell the city how to prepare the lawsuits, represent the Catholic. And I was trained and taught by my mother, even though I have all these attorney friends, I never share my personal problems or ask them for favors. I fight my own battles. part of me does understand and part of me doesn't. But real quick, I went and go visit Roy Ball Learning Center, and I spoke to the to the detective on Baldry and First, and he shared with me that the reason they're no longer inside the public schools or outside to supervise these kids when they go home, because Black Lives Matter, Don't Matter organization fought that they don't want the police department in there. Well, I'm gonna fight. I want them back, and I want 2 detectives assigned to each school, like when I went. I want 2 detectives assigned to.
Thank you. The next speaker, please. Lord Shayna Flores. Maybe reading it wrong, I'm sorry.
Mike? Yes. For the record, I am Alpha and the Omega, the beginning and the end. The Lord which is to come and now is here as Almighty God. I'm here as a judge. I'm here and I'm calling judgment on the police department and the city of Los Angeles, all false leadership, all abuse of power, all people who have allowed fentanyl, the epidemic, to come into the city. This is a city of modern Egypt. It is such a disgrace that when I fired Chief Beck Moore, I was put into retaliation. As the Lord, when I come as the Lord, you honor my name and you respect that. Because I have been called to call judgment, and I've tried to come 3 times to this place, and you have called, canceled for some reason or the other. So I'm here because I prayed mercy for your soul. It's time to repent. The whole city, for it is written, pray for your enemies, bless your enemies, and God will take over. I'm alive. I'm here. They can't kill me. And the excessive killings is a disgrace. You're killing someone's child. What if it happened to your child? How would you feel? This is the hour of judgment. Babylon has fallen, according to Revelations. The great city, because it has made nations drunk of its wine from the wrath of the fornication immorality. If anyone worships the beast and the image of which receives the mark of the forehead on the hand, he will drink the wine and the wrath of God. So last week, you just honored my name, but let me tell you who I am.
Thank you. The next speaker, please. Jason Reedy.
Son, 1 Timothy 2:5.
Your 2
For
minutes
there is
are up.
one God, one
You're-
mediator
you're being
between
disrupted.
God and man.
Being warned. Your 2 minutes are up. Thank you.
Okay, so nowhere in the Pinkest of Pigs, Jim McDonald's report back to this commission was a mention of an LAPD pig shooting a pregnant woman in her stomach with a less lethal. Video from the ground show her sobbing in pain as she walks past the pig line, grabbing her stomach. This department has shown time and time again no one is immune from their violence. Now, last week, Jim responded to a question from the fascist California Post by venting his frustration over disruptions at this commission, branding many of us as, quote, agitators and dismissing our actions as, quote, vile conduct. Strikingly, no one can point to a single instance where Jim McDonald used that same language to condemn the acts of terror carried out by his pigs in our community. For example, Will detailed the disgusting acts by rapist Gabriel Espadas, but should be noted that Who's That Cop on Twitter pointed out that prior to becoming a pig, Espadas, Air Force veteran, stalked and harassed a woman. When that woman contacted the LAPD to make a report of Espada stalking her and sending harassing and sexually explicit messages, including extremely disturbing bestiality content, the LAPD dismissed her claims and never followed up. And then they hired him two years later. 34 days and counting, LAPD continues to shield the names of their latest murders as they market themselves again as the most transparent pig department in the nation. This marks the 3rd consecutive meeting where I've brought this up, and not a single one of you fucking commissioners has done anything about it. Now on to 4B. On to this bogus report from the OIG on the LAPD's foreign training activities. Matthew and his minions had 2 years to put together this, quote, limited scope report that will be the only deep dive into these activities. It will be presented on the record as fact, despite being littered with fiction, and its primary purpose is propaganda. The OIG admits
that there was not an exhaustive search for records not provided by LAPD around training events. They admit that they didn't conduct a comprehensive review of their social media or online contact. They admit that they can't account for the full nature and extent of training activities by LAPD, especially those happening in with the genocidal entity of Israel. They can't even provide documentation prior to 2021. LAPD lies to everyone. They lie to this commission, the media, the public. Lying is an age-old tradition of this department. They claim that they didn't have any records available in regards to this report before 2021 is ridiculous. It's a ridiculous claim. And for those records that they do have, they can't account for 3% of the funding for the trial.
Thank you. The next speaker, Hamid Khan.
I just want to read a quote from Bratton. This is in 2014 when he was a keynote speaker at Israel's first ever National Conference on Personal Safety, which he opened by proclaiming that we are, and I quote, that we are fortunate in the United States and Israel to live in the world's two strongest democracies. So in 2010, ADL honored Bill Bratton for his lifetime of service. The reason I started with this was that this bogus audit that we saw of training, I mean, limited audit, whatever the fuck you want to call it, completely, and this is the Inspector General. The Police Commission has subpoena powers. He can demand any documents, but of course, they are torn, they are shredded, they are thrown away, because nowhere are you going to see the records that going back to 2002, when JINSA, the Jewish Institute of National Security of America, started the law enforcement exchange program. Nowhere in the report would you see the trainings that ADL, annual National Counterterrorism seminars, are done. Nowhere in the reports are you going to see the Anti-Defamation League's advanced training schools. And nowhere in the report would you see Errol Southers, who was the president of the commission, who was actually a lecturer and a professor at a Zionist institution in Israel as well. But what you do see and what you do suffer from, and what we see the impact on the youth, that how policing has been crafted, informed, and created in the United States by the LAPD as a result of the training with Israel. Looking at the Countering Violent Extremism program, going into Preventing Violent Extremism program, and now an active program providing alternatives to hinder extremism, the PATH program, which directly is mass surveillance and targeting of our youth in Los Angeles. That is a program this is how these programs are found over time, which include mass surveillance.
Thank you. The next speaker, please. Kuyan.
Why wouldn't anybody want to talk about it? Did you guys want to investigate all this thing? And where is the goddamn SAR audit there?
Mr. Khan, your time is up, please.
Every year. No, I'm calling out the
Next
Next speaker,
please.
Kuyan.
Teresa, that's you. Last week, you had an agenda item posing to care, trying to distance yourself from ICE as you banned face masks. But you didn't, and simultaneously, your pigs can kill people with or without face masks, and they face no consequences. That's the full immunity granted when you shoot someone with an LAPD gun. Not only that, but we've been talking for a whole year about how LAPD collaborates with ICE. You know flock cameras have been sharing data via your memorandum of understanding with them, and you take it to another level, as beyond information sharing, you've shown ICE agents don't need masks to be granted immunity from LAPD. We know that because you refuse to recognize that Brian Palacios was the person who killed Keith Porter. We told you this last week, and we told you the week before, but we know it's something you'll never understand because you are communityless vermin. We know Keith Porter was a father of 2 beautiful daughters. We know Keith called his mom every day, and we know Keith was beloved to his coworkers at Home Depot. You'll never be beloved to anyone. This week's agenda is as heinous as last week's. Matthew Baragon released a bullshit report after community named the LAPD trains with Israeli occupation forces. The Zionist entity is a military wing in which Palestinians have endured, survived, and continued living through their unrelentless assault, intentional constructed mass starvation, and relentless bombing, surveillance, and policing. Your claim is that you've trained together 9 times, but the OIG just above your 9-time statement say that this is an incomplete report. Guess you shit the bed with the IOF far more frequently than an annual reunion. You support the Zionist entity abroad in occupied Palestine, and you commit genocide against our black and brown communities at home. But we're still here, and the Palestinian people continue to survive. Palestine will be free, and LAPD will be abolished. And last week, when you decided that part of Linda Becerra Moran's murder was in policy, your policy is to murder. It has always been to murder. Deleted footage, saved footage. The public knows the truth, and it's reflected in your body cam, and it's reflected outside of your body cam. You killed Linda Becerra Moran. Linda was a trans woman, and she called LAPD for help when she was being trafficked. She called you for help, and you mocked her, and you tortured her, and she showed you her wounds, and you killed her. LAPD shot Linda Becerra Moran.
The next speaker, Grace. Grace.
Again, not adding much and anything new, but let's be absolutely clear. This so-called review of foreign trainings is a cover story. What you're overseeing is not harmless foreign travel or professional development. It's the laundering of counterinsurgency tactics from occupying forces and repressive regimes straight into Los Angeles. LAPD's foreign trainings, especially with Israel, the Zionist entity, are about teaching and learning how to dominate, surveil, disappear, and kill populations deemed disposable, and then bringing those methods home to be deployed against black, brown, Muslim, immigrant, unhoused people, and protesters. PATH, providing alternatives to hinder extremism, makes that unmistakably clear. PATH is the LAPD surveillance program funded by the Department of Homeland Security, the same agency that cages migrants and runs ICE. When a young person is flagged under PATH by deputized community members, their information goes directly into fusion centers where ICE and Border Patrol can access it. That is the snitching pipeline disguised as community intervention. And let's talk about ideology and money. Homeland Security has handed hundreds of thousands of dollars to Zionist organizations like the Simon Wiesenthal Center through so-called preventing violent extremism programs. These groups are not observers. They are active collaborators feeding racist, Islamophobic, and anti-Palestinian frameworks into policing here. While Gaza is being obliterated, while families are buried under rubble and entire bloodlines are erased, the city remains complicit, politically, financially, and tactically. Los Angeles is not neutral. LAPD learns from genocide abroad and enacts it locally through displacement, surveillance, and state violence. DHS, CBP, ICE, LAPD, this is one coordinated apparatus of control and repression and population management. This is counterinsurgency, plain and simple. So don't insult the public with language about benefits or oversight. We know what this is. This commission rubber stamps violence and then pretends to be shocked by the outcomes. Stop using our communities as laboratories for counterinsurgency. We are not confused, we are not fooled, and we are not backing down. From Los Angeles to Palestine, you all have blood on your hands.
The next speaker, Caitlin Brown.
I'm here today to address the comments regarding the non-enforcement of the California state law regarding masks. We heard that it is to avoid creating conflict with another agency and to not be detrimental to public safety. However, the text of the law says that the facial coverings per section C are to make the essential components of nonverbal communication in a high stress and an emotionally charged situation visible, and that may increase the risk of conflict escalation if we can't see them. That's not detrimental to public safety. That's helping enforce communication and make sure that we can be safer in these high stress situations. Furthermore, Section E says that when officers are not identifiable, it increases the risk of impersonation and hinders, it undermines public trust, it endangers public safety, which is the opposite of what we said today, detrimental to public safety. We heard from someone else in the audience, as a woman, I don't feel safe, and I wouldn't either, because from what I've seen in January, I wouldn't want to resist anything. I wouldn't want to do anything if I was potentially confronted by these people. God forbid they weren't real agents, you know? I mean, God forbid they were to, honestly, yeah. So I would like you to reconsider what you have said on that front. We had someone in Huntington Park who was arrested for having documents as an impersonator. Someone in North Carolina was arrested for committing sexual assault. Don't wait for it to happen here. Don't wait for it to happen to one of us. I yield my time.
Thank you. The next speaker, Michael Diggin.
Jim McDonnell, you are a worthless joke of a chief of police. You, sir, are a fascist bootlicker. I am absolutely livid that you refuse to enforce laws that are voted on by your citizens. That is absolutely, completely an abdication of your duty as chief of police. As someone previously stated, you are much more interested in protecting property than you are in protecting the lives of the Angelinos that are under your care. What kind of chief of police is that? Property is worthless compared to a single human life. You disgust me. I personally have been on the front lines of the MDC on Friday, and I saw your agents start the conflict by spraying people with huge cans of bear mace. Not the people started that conflict, just on Friday that you were just talking about. I have personally been shot by one of your damn 40mm crowd control rounds that you no longer use back in June. And you say it's only used when someone runs at you with a knife? I was standing there with my phone and live streaming. I was attacking no one, and I was shot twice in the ribs and in my shoulder blade by 40mm grenade launcher foam rounds. Personally, I've been on the front line of most of these conflicts down here in Los Angeles, so I could personally witness and repeat myself the lies that you were spouting to all of these people. You, sir, are pathetic.
Michael Williams. Michael Williams.
This man, Jim McDonnell, on Thursday said that he's not going to enforce a law as a sitting police chief. And y'all are just okay with it. That's why every week I come here and say, we don't expect nothing from you all. We don't expect anything from you all because you've made it clear that you're going to allow this man to do whatever he wants to do. No investigation into whether he's still giving license plate readers to information to ICE. No repercussions for him saying he's not going to abide by a state law. No repercussions for his officers who are continually brutalizing people who are protesting against ICE. What else are people supposed to do when you won't even enforce a law that is supposed to protect them from ICE? And you're mad that they're in the streets? You're mad that they're throwing things at the ICE officers? You're coming to their aid? You're talking about it's a bad idea for one armed agency to go after another armed agency, so LAPD only goes after people they think are unarmed? We know y'all are cowards for real. We know y'all are cowards for real. We know that. You don't have to tell us that. But you're damn sure prepared enough to go after unarmed protesters to beat them. You can enforce that law. You're a joke, and this commission is a joke. Rasha, ain't nobody, the peaceful protesters and the violent protesters, we're on the same page. Ain't no message been diluted. The message is fuck ICE, fuck the police.
The next speaker is Sheila Bates. Sheila Bates.
Teresa, you arbitrarily decide to shorten comment to 2 minutes and not allow everyone to speak. You are not a good person for expanding public comment to 60 minutes. You are supposed to be the civilian representation of the public in policing. But to do that, you actually have to fucking listen to the public. For a full 3 minutes, everyone in the room speaks. Full stop. Jim McDonald, you don't get to determine what laws should be. Supposedly, you are law enforcement, meaning you are supposed to enforce said laws, even laws that you don't like or agree with. That includes enforcing a law that was passed by the state legislature and signed by the governor to ensure that ICE agents don't get to hide behind a mask while they terrorize communities. It's interesting how the same entities who threw a fit about wearing masks in COVID want to now all of a sudden wear masks to skirt accountability. Teresa asked a question, but then had nothing to say when when the chief told lies, and is still skirting the law and protecting ICE. But of course he is, because he was collaborating with ICE when he was sheriff, one who was so awful that people thought Villanueva was a good replacement. Also, as a reminder, the unmasked cops and ICE agents have been killing people with impunity because of the likes of this body who sign off on murder after murder. Let's be clear, spray paint is not violence, Rasha. It is at most property damage. What is violence is the rubber bullet shot by LAPD, including the one at the belly of a pregnant woman, including someone who was shot in the eye when you've already blinded someone doing this. Let's remind you, tear gas was identified as a chemical weapon that is not to be used in war, but is readily used by LAPD. And LAPD and ICE are the same, full stop. Rasha, you don't get to determine what is diluting the fucking message. You are diluting the message by spinning your propaganda and copaganda. The message is to abolish ICE and to abolish the police. Fuck ICE and fuck the police because they are one and the same. Arrest Brian Palacios and present a case to the DA. How many LAPD cops are moonlighting as ICE? The lies of Jim and this body and the media who are protecting them, including the white woman who tried to...
Thank you. The next speaker, please, Greg Akili.
Always good to follow Sheila, don't y'all think? Follow Sheila and Michael. I think because they set the parameter for what needs to be said. First, let me start out by saying we don't trust you at all. We have been coming here for years. I've been arrested in this room twice. And part of the reason we don't trust you is because you seek to confine and constrict as opposed to being open to the public. That's what we come here for. Many of us get up and come here, and you used to fill the room with police. Now you fill the hallways with police. So we don't trust you. The other thing, I've been participating in protests for over 55 years. I've never participated and or planned an anti or violent demonstration. It's always been the police that make it violent. It's always been the law enforcement that shows up that makes it violent. You all would have been on the side of the people who dumped the tea, or what would you told those people who dumped that tea in the Boston Harbor? You're diluting your message? No, you can't tell us how to protest. That's the first thing. The second thing, you cannot say to us, we can only protest a certain way. And then finally, let me do this because I got 50 seconds left, and I want to make sure that there's enough room for everybody. We want to make sure first that you stop the cover-up. Arrest Brian Palacio. Prosecute him. Stop the character assassination of Keith Foster Porter. You know I do that all the time. And some of y'all have been letting me say for the past 12 years that Black Lives Matters. And thank y'all for correcting me. That's how I want to take that second to do that. So and this is something I find contradictory. Do your job.
Thank you. Dr. Melina Abdullah.
So I want to start by the ridiculousness that you allowed the chief to speak without checking him. I want to remind you that you are supposed to be the oversight body. You're supposed to be the civilian voice. You're supposed to be the head of the LAPD. You're supposed to keep him in check. And instead, we hear you speak constantly about we as LAPD. You are not we. You are the oversight body. You're supposed to be we. But you treat us just like they treat us, as if we are enemy combatants, as if you need to shut us down, shut us up, kick us out instead of listening. You're supposed to represent us. You allowed this fool right here who's not looking, who's texting, who's being extremely disrespectful and white supremacist and sexist in his actions and his inactions, say what laws he's going to enforce and not enforce. As Sheila said, the legislature is charged with making laws. The governor signed that law, and then that law is redoubled in LA County when LA County Board of Supervisors also imposed a mask ban on ICE agents. Why? Because at least 30 agents have been identified as rapists and child rapists. At least 30. Because Brian Palacios, who should be arrested and charged for murdering Keith Porter, is a documented child abuser who couldn't even, if he were a civilian, get a gun because he has active restraining orders against him. And you all choose to protect him instead of protecting the people today. So I also want to lift up, you are arbitrarily choosing to shut down public comment. And until 20.
Thank you. The next speaker, please, is Zay Jarain.
You're, who's the next speaker?
Zay Jarain.
Excuse me, Mr. Ha? Mr. Ha? Thank you.
Okay. What are we going to do to reduce the latency of accountability being enforced? Because public urgency seems to fall on deaf ears. What is the tangible agency of this oversight committee to enforce justice? So again, what are we going to do to reduce the latency of accountability being enforced? Beyond this, my biggest question is, does our Second Amendment right only exist on paper unless I have a badge? Because it seems that we are expected to surrender our lives without resistance. And I didn't come up here for answers to these questions. I came to tell you to remember my face, because I won't go quietly into the night. I love my life, and I have a right to live, just as we all do. And under no circumstances am I going to comply with illegal orders. Neither will I silently witness the erosion of my constitutional rights. The last thing I will say is if LAPD does not find a conscience in this political economy, you will be facilitating a dictatorship. That's what you're doing. By picking and choosing when you enforce the law, you're facilitating a dictatorship. You will be complicit in facilitating an authoritarian dictatorship into power. This is not conspiracy theory. This is an imperial boomerang, a literal historic phenomenon that is occurring once again, but you know this because LAPD was trained by IDF. So you knew the horrors in Gaza were gonna make their way home. You knew this. So I ask, who are you and what will history call you? These ICE agents are not your co-workers. They're cowards committing war crimes on domestic territory who have not undergone proper training and refuse to honor American due process. American due process is the only thing upholding that blue line from us taking your heads off. So if due process doesn't get enforced, you will have hell to pay, and you need to remember this face, because I'll be one of the ones enforcing it.
Thank you. Michael Glenkamp.
This is our last speaker. All right. Not everyone is going to speak. This is our last speaker. And give him his 2 minutes.
What kind of bullshit is that? Like, for real, like, you cut our time to allow people to speak, and then you won't allow everyone to speak.
The Board of Commissioners cannot conduct an orderly meeting because people are being disruptive. and speaking out of turn. This creates an actual disruption. If it does
The
not
next
stop
speaker, please.
immediately, I will order the room cleared pursuant to the California Government Code Section 54957.9. All right, because the disruption has not stopped and the board is unable to conduct its orderly meeting, I am ordering the room cleared pursuant to California Government Code Section 54957.9. The board will now recess into closed session.
Madam President, please note the commission has concluded its work in closed session. We're now back in open session. We'll have a report out by the executive director.
Thank you. So with respect to item 6A1, at the regular meeting of the Board of Police Commissioners on February 3rd, 2026, during the closed session, the board made the following findings by a 4-0 vote. And this is officer involved shooting case 005-25. For tactics, tactical debrief, 1 Sergeant 1 and 5 police officers 3. For drawing and exhibition of a firearm, in policy, no further action, 3 police officers 3. For the intermediate use of force, in policy, no further action, 4 police officers 3. And for the lethal use of force, in policy, no further action, 1 police officer 3. And then moving on to item 6A2, which is officer involved shooting 006-25. The following findings were made by a 3-1 vote. For tactics, tactical debrief, 2 police officers 2. For drawing and exhibition of a firearm, in policy, no further action, 1 police officer 2. And for lethal use of force, in policy, no further action, 1 police officer 2. And the breakdown of the 3-1 vote was that the 3 votes were Commissioners Sanchez Gordon, Shields, and Tabor, and the 1 vote was Commissioner Scobin, and that concludes the report out.
We'll now move to consent agenda items. We have agenda items 3A, B, C, D, E, F. Do any commissioners wish to pull any items? Commissioner Shields?
No, thank you.
Commissioner Scobin?
No.
Commissioner Tabor?
No.
Commissioner Sanchez Gordon?
No.
Okay. Do we have a motion to approve the recommended board action items for agenda item A through F?
There is a motion to approve the recommended board action of consent agenda items A through F.
Second.
Second. All in favor, say aye.
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 Okay, motion passes. Thank you. We'll now move to agenda item 4A. We have the department's report relative to traffic enforcement alternatives. City Council file number 20-0875, and we have Director Bowers and Captain White.
Good afternoon, everyone.
Good afternoon.
I'm also here with Captain White, who will be available for deeper dig into questions you may have. There's a lot to cover, but I'll make it brief. This is an effort that came out of the City Council. There was an earlier time going back to 2022 when the department issued special order number 3. The policy was a limitation on the use of pretextual stops, and it became known as the department's pretext policy. It came out of a time when there were growing concerns in the community, members in LA and frankly across the nation, with regard to the manner and frequency of stops for minor offenses. And some people begin to accuse the officers of using the stops in an arbitrary and capricious manner, influenced by implicit or explicit bias. So that concern started to raise across the nation. The concerns intensified after several national events between 2014 and 2020 that highlighted the need for policing practices grounded in transparency, fairness, and community trust. Additionally, there was Assembly Bill 953, the California Racial and Identity Profiling Act in 2015, and that increased scrutiny by requiring detailed stop data reporting, which revealed racial and identity-based disparities and raised expectations for clearer articulation and increased safeguards that would hopefully create a bias-free environment in the stops. The LA City Council initially requested the LAPD IG to do the evaluation that is before you today, but we discussed the various issues with regard to who was in the best position to go forward, and the CPPB ended up taking that on and produced the fact sheet that's before you today, which gives you somewhat of a history, issues, suggestions on improvement, and ultimately the request that this be approved, that this fact sheet be approved by this body and passed on to the city council for further action. First, let's start with the pretext policy. The department's pretext stop policy does not prohibit the use of pretextual starts, but it establishes requirements to ensure officers can explain the public safety basis for any stop and accurately distinguish when a stop involves a pretext. We're one of the departments in the United States that views this as a tool that is very effective in discovering crime, protecting the public, and this department has taken steps to ensure the safety of the public and that it's practiced in a constitutionally sound and appropriate manner. One of the key elements is under the policy, the articulation of both the pretext and the non-pretext stops is required to be captured on the body-worn video, the BWV, if any way possible. Pretext stops may only occur when officers have articulable information beyond the minor traffic stop. The minor traffic stop in isolation is not sufficient for any pretext search or any further action. These stricter requirements are intended to reduce the risk of stops being based on hunches, which is really not constitutional, or generalized characteristics. And it's intended also to enhance the department's ability to accurately categorize, assess, and review the stops, and also learn from that to continue to improve and make sure these stops are constitutional, safe, and productive from a criminal investigative standpoint. It's also interesting to note that one of the factors that may contribute to providing the basis for a pretextual stop includes the intelligence of local crimes and illegal activities within the area. So that can supplement additional, again, you have to articulate what it is as an officer who's making that stop and moving forward from the vehicular stop onto a further search. Okay, if you look at Table 1, which shows all stops between 2019 and 2024, you see a pretty significant decline between 2019 and 2024, which results in about a 51.1% decrease over that period. Now, some of that, it's driven by several factors, including the COVID-19 pandemic, reduced department personnel, and also some of the policy changes requiring stricter foundations for making the pretextual stop. By 2022, as you see on the chart, the total stops were already at a historical low level and then kind of level out through 2024. The department began formally tracking pretext stops on April 1st, 2022. I don't think there's any significance to that date, but that's when it started. Accordingly, Table number 2, traffic violation stops, reflects the activity from April 1st, 2022 through November 30th, 2025, across 4 geographic areas or bureaus. You can see it's Central, OCB, South, OSB, West, OWB, and Valley, OVW. The lower percentage of pretext stops observed in 2022 likely reflects an initial learning period related to identifying and documenting the pretext stops, rather than really a sustained difference in enforcement practices, although that will come. Beginning in 2023, pretext stops consistently accounted for approximately 10% of total traffic stops. So it's not a large amount, it's a smaller percentage, but it's a type of stop that can create more damage, constitutional issues, dissatisfaction with the public. So you want to make sure that they're well-founded and ensures the safety of the people. Now, discovery rates is table number 3. Discovery rate is just when we actually discover some sort of evidence or significant material after going beyond the stop and having sufficient information to conduct a search, what happens? Is it worth it? Do we find something? And this chart shows that. We know that it's a smaller type of search and that it doesn't always uncover some evidence, but this shows that for narco-related evidence through 2022, 2023, 2024, and 2025, the percentage ends up being the highest of the types of evidence identified. There's other, and you see the percentages there, weapons-related evidence, you see the percentages, and then ultimately firearms. And then the next chart shows the aggregate discovery rates of pretext traffic stops, and they typically range from 15 to 22%. And while it is higher than what our department has experienced, it can be explained by differences in scope and methodology. But overall, the pretext traffic stops represent a limited portion of our department's stops and enforcement. Our discovery outcomes associated with the pretext-related searches appear to be broadly consistent with the national research when interpreted in context. Now, the next section is investigative method, and it shows that Wren versus United States, in that case, the U.S. Supreme Court held that any traffic violation gives officers a legitimate legal basis to stop a vehicle, even if the officer is hoping to investigate. If there's sufficient probable cause for the stop, that's fine. But it just establishes the subjective motive of the officer doesn't control if in fact there is underlying probable cause. But to go on, the officer has to have the articulable basis to meet the Fourth Amendment demands to make the search. And initially, there was some difficulty with some officers. They recognized the probable cause and the positions that they could take supporting that, but to articulate it was not always a skill that an officer has. And so part of this is to train them, make them understand what probable cause is, what justifies a pretextual search after the stop. Then there's another, the next section is the crime reduction strategy, and you see 4 case studies. One is Kansas City gun experiment in 1992, Indianapolis Directed Patrol Project in 1997, Ramsey County, Minnesota in 2022, and Ann Arbor, Michigan in 2023. The Kansas City gun experiment concentrated on patrol efforts in an 80-block hotspot where the homicide rate was approximately 20 times the national average. So within this area, officers increased recoveries through frisks associated with arrests and by observing firearms in plain view during routine traffic and safety stops. The Indianapolis Directed Patrol Project was a 1997 experiment evaluating 2 proactive policy strategies in high gun crime areas. One area used a problem-oriented approach focused on specific offenders and locations, while the other relied more heavily on traffic stops and field interrogation to develop the probable cause for the search and the discovery of the weapons. The Ramsey County, Minnesota, and the Ann Arbor, Michigan programs are closer to what this department policy is concerning pretext stops and approaches. Neither the Ramsey County nor Ann Arbor agencies totally prohibit the use of pretext stops, like our department does not do that, because it can serve as a good and productive law enforcement technique so long as it's protected against hunches, arbitrary, illegal motive, those types of stops. There are occasions when critical evidence is discovered, and as long as it's done constitutionally and appropriately, which this department teaches and enforces, it should be fine. It shouldn't be totally abolished. So as long as you ensure that the minor violation isn't illegally being used for further law enforcement action, this can be a useful tool. Actually, the 4 case studies support the overall value of proactive policing, where you can focus sometimes on a specific area and with the use of the pretext stops, searches, gives you a further instrument to identify and also arrest some of the main offenders. So the next one is traffic safety prioritization and oversight protocols. The department permits officers to use all aspects of the current California Vehicle Code that are not otherwise limited by department policies to pursue the pretext stops. To ensure compliance with the law, the policies, procedural justice tenets, and organizational values, the department has implemented a multi-layered review of officers' stops. The audit division produces quarterly audit results for traffic stops conducted by patrol and gang enforcement detail personnel. The audits evaluate compliance with California Assembly Bill 2773, which requires officers to inform the detained party the reason for the stop before engaging in any questioning related to the criminal investigation or traffic violation. The audits also evaluate officers' adherence to the department's own pretext policies. And the results are then incorporated into the quarterly CompStat inspections of the 21 areas under the Office of Operations, and those are quarterly. So there's quite a bit of oversight and ability to identify common mistakes, insufficient actions, a variety of ways to continue to improve our conduct on the pretext stops and further searches. As to pending state legislation, there isn't any, but we do mention the California Racial and Identity Profiling Advisory Board's draft 2026 report, which urges the legislature to prohibit pretextual stops or limit stops to specific offenses that impact public safety, similar to policies in some cities and states. This, at this point, is just a recommendation, but we will continue to monitor it because, again, this department views the pretextual stop done in a safe way, a constitutional manner, is a law enforcement tool that shouldn't be abandoned. And so in conclusion, the department's existing limitations on pretext stops reflects its commitment to listening to community concerns and responding with strategies that meet their needs while advancing public safety. Our system of overnight audits and reporting typify our desire to continually evaluate our performance and proactively seek opportunities for improvement. Most significantly, other agencies' application of similar pretext stop policies shows that the limitation rather than prohibition of such stops can reduce community harm and increase trust between the community and the police, while still maintaining what is a lawful and effective investigative tool for law enforcement. Any questions?
Thank you. Excuse me. We're going to ask the questions. Just a moment. Yes, excuse me. You don't have the floor. Just a moment, please. Okay, questions, commissioners? Any questions? Mr. Tabor?
Does the report also include data, if so, on the impact of racial disparities amongst, thank you very much. Does the report also include information about the impact on what was received as racial disparities in stops prior to the change in policy and protocol?
Hello, it's Captain White from the Strategic Planning and Policies Division. So, sir, this was in response. I'm sorry, ma'am.
Can't hear you because I've got this noise over here.
Oh, sorry. So, sir, to answer your question, this is in response to a specific council motion from ongoing discussions about looking at unarmed policing models for traffic stops. In this specific report, in this motion, they were looking for certain areas related to pretext stops. And so this is narrowly tailored to that. And broadly, we would be able to get that information for the number of traffic stops that pre-2022 resulted in a racial bias complaint. We did not include that data here because it was not part of the council's request.
Excuse me. I'm going to suggest that you step outside so you can speak to these two officers and see if they can assist you. Okay, excuse me. We have a meeting coming. You are being disruptive. I'm giving you one warning and your last warning before I ask you to be removed. Okay. Excuse me. We are in a meeting. You are also being disruptive. This is your first and last warning. If you both continue, you are going to be asked to be removed. Could you please remove them, Sergeant of Arms? Please remove them. Excuse me, we're going to ask you to be removed, and that means you go outside. Officers, would you just escort her outside, please, gently?
You are violating our rights. This is a public forum. Go back to bed, Mama. You just don't want to hear what's right. We need to have cameras on every police department because they're not trained from the beginning. I have been a victim of the court and wrongful identity theft. Now I have to suffer for my career as a doctor, as a doctor of psychology because your system lacks transparency. We have to have transparency. We have to have cameras on people. Half of the people in prison are suffering because there's lack of transparency. There's racial profiling. There's racial profiling. I'm a political asylum in the United States. So are all these real people. As an Afro-American gentleman, you should know. We have rights. Thank you so much. All the minorities have to suffer because there's no camera footage. Camera footage only get back to Sabina. You have no money, happen to Sabina. We tell Sabina and get fair share in the process.
Okay, thank you. All right, Commissioner Tabor, you may continue.
When I had the opportunity to visit the officers out in the Jefferson Division, one of the sergeants there described to me the useful tactic of pretextual stops, both from the standpoint of having prior knowledge and of information about patterns that were being identified, crimes in the area, but also from the ability to identify individuals that had other histories of criminal activity. I'm wondering if in the conversation or in the report that goes to the council, if there's a way to include their, well, I'm sure they'll, by their conversation on the topic, the issue of racial disparities will come up, and just wanted to make sure that we raise it here because it becomes then an opportunity to lay aside the concerns that communities have about being overly policed in that instance, and or to respond to it knowing what the data says and what the training then how the training then can be addressed to address that particular concern. The other question that comes to mind, and they're similar to two others, the geographic distribution. Are all bureaus using pretextual stops in the same way, or are we seeing it being utilized as a tactic in one area, not so much in another, and the potential reasons for that, and then finally the actual times of day and the types of vehicles. All of these become part of the public discourse, and I think the more we can respond to not just the professional side of the tactic used as a tool, but the public awareness of the tactic and the public's presumption that it is an inappropriate type of enforcement rather than a tool to protect. The more we can provide some context for those types of discussions, the better off we'll be going forward. So those thoughts and questions.
Yeah, so for your 3 points, I'll start from the most recent one. When you're talking about the inclusion of time of day and then also vehicle type, we do have the time that each stop occurred, but we do not record vehicle type. That is not one of the many categories that RIPA data requires us to capture. So the Chief Legislative Analyst's office in their report attempted to use vehicle data as part of it, and it is largely incomplete. About 63% of the reported RIPA data does not have that associated because those are optional fields for officers. It is not something the department requires or state law requires. but we can certainly look at time of day. When we look at its overall use across the city, it varies by division and by bureau. And that is because we do not weigh pretext stops as being of more value or less value than traffic enforcement. You will find that it varies across the city, same as our A's and K's. And so each command is within their purview to stress what they're looking for, and then the officers will use the tools that are available to them. So it depends on the nature of the command as to how many of these pretext stops are related to vehicular stops. If you'll recall, the policy does require that what the officers are looking for, that thing that they believe they have more than just the stop, is a crime of a serious nature. So in our areas where it's mostly property crime, or that they're looking for pedestrian activity, or perhaps it's people that are suspects on bikes, you won't see that translated here. And then the final portion in talking about race, we can certainly add that. That is something that is part of the CLA's report. You will find, however, that the most common practice is to compare it to the city's population and using the census data. I would like to stress that it's important to remember that pretext stops are an investigative tool, and that means that we believe that the person that we are stopping has committed a crime. When you look at the actual breakdown for our victims of crime and our suspects of crime, those are not in alignment with our census data. What you will find is that they skew towards communities of color for various societal reasons, but that also is reflected in our pretext stop data, is that you will see that those do not align with our census data for the city. So we can certainly add that, and as a speaking point, we do understand that that's something that the CLA will have there in their report, but they focus on census tracking and then also the council districts, which is not how we normally do our reporting. So there will be a little bit of disparity as to how the council members are looking at the report as compared to how the department does it by areas, RDs, and bureaus.
Okay. Commissioner Shields?
Yes, thank you. Thank you for the report. And it's helpful to know what kind of context the city council was requesting this information in terms of using unarmed policing models for traffic stops. I think can be a very dangerous situation. And so I think that's, one thing that I was unsure about in terms of just even the chart that's included here. Traffic violation stops. There's a column for pretext and then column for total people stops. Are we comparing number of stops to the number of individuals stopped? How are we distinguishing that? Do we
Right.
know what the total number of stops are and then taking a percentage off that?
So we look at it as for total people stop because there's opportunity for the passenger to be stopped as well as part of the pretext stops. So that is total people stopped because in a stop you may have 4 people that are lawfully detained and then the number that it's associated with pretext. And so that's people stop tends to be the cleaner way to do it so that we're capturing everyone versus just looking at the total number of traffic stops because it doesn't tell you how many people were impacted by the use of our pretext policy.
So with the column that talks about pretext, is that the number of pretextual stops or is it people stops?
Right, so that's pretext, people stopped under pretext.
So we are comparing the people stopped by pretext versus total people stopped in all traffic.
Yes.
Violation. And just to be clear in terms of, we're talking about a small percentage of all traffic stops that are pretextual. There's nothing that prevents the officers from, again, given all of the traffic fatalities and the increase in pedestrian, fatalities, we're not preventing officers from stopping people who are speeding or changing lanes unsafely, things like that. Is that accurate?
That is correct. So all of those stops where you're looking were, like in 2022, OWB, only 3% of stops were pretext. All other stops would be categorized as traffic safety stops. So those are their 2 options when they're saying that it is a non-pretext stop. They are saying that they are doing it because it is related to traffic safety.
And what was the percentage of stops that are determined to be pretextual?
So when we're looking now, it's about an average of 10% per year citywide, but that can range from as low as we're looking at 5.9% in OWB in 2023, and then as high as, I believe, 15.4% is the high from last year, and that was OSB. So it has quite the range on it depending on the bureau, and again, it'll further differentiate by division.
And, pretextual stops themselves are constitutional.
Yes, ma'am.
And so the policy that the department has adopted is basically limiting certain types of constitutional stops for purposes of avoiding racial disparities and other types of community engagement concerns. I do think that whether it's in this report or something else, given that this is under kind of review and wanting to be the most informed for the commission to be evaluating, the pretext policy and where it stands now, I do think that the questions of our other commissioner regarding racial disparities is a helpful one. I do think having the breakdown of, we have the RIPA data, so with all of the pretextual stops, knowing where that breaks down, and also the evidence found versus evidence not found. Basically, the couple of charts that you have, I think it can be supplemented with more factual RIPA data, and I'm particularly also interested in the types of violations being used and how that translates. Like, things that really would potentially not need a traffic stop to do, like, broken taillight or, I don't know, registration or something. Just knowing where are the equipment violations versus some other violations, because I don't want, to the extent there's any kind of curtail of pretextual stops, throwing the baby out with the bathwater. Are there some pretextual stops that are really more effective than others, or more likely to result in better evidence gathering than others? So to the extent, do we calculate or have available data about what are the different types of vehicle code violations being utilized and what those results are?
Yes, so we do have the most common pretext stops with vehicle codes associated with them by area. We've not done an analysis that I'm aware of that tracks the outcomes relative to that. Again, our audits mostly focus on compliance with the law and policy, but we can endeavor to include a table on there that bases it. I would recommend doing it at citywide, because if we start to make it granular, because I'm including now adding racial distribution, time of day, and then evidence discovery by race. We can parse this a number of ways, but I do want to make sure that we're giving a clear message as to what the validity is. So I would say that we can look at it as, yes, using the top 10 reasons for the stops that are pretext stops, and then what are the outcomes for those, including with evidence found or not.
And have you found that the officers fully understand the stop? Because that was one of the areas that I thought there was some concern of officers not fully understanding, when can they and can they not, and what do they need to articulate in order to make a proper pretextual stop that complies with the department's policy?
I believe there's always opportunities to continue to have that discussion because you have varied levels of understanding, and as we have new officers come in the department, it's incumbent upon what they learn in the academy, their training officers, and then what they find in their own experience. So the RIPA unit, when it was under DEID, continued to do training on that. As we discover areas where there are challenges, they create different tools for it. So there's an AFDR completion guide. All of the RIPA data is captured in our automated field data reports that really walks people through how to complete it and gives detail on each section. And then again, with the CompStat inspection process, that allows for commands to have it brought to light for them where they may be having challenges, and if it's just a couple of officers because maybe they aren't able to capture correctly, or if it's something more holistic, or if they're just successful across the board, because we do have commands that on those reviews are doing a good job of different officers across patrol and GED successfully meeting all the categories.
And in the report, there was an indication that the audit division's doing a pilot program. Do you have a sense of when that pilot program will be completed and when we can see any type of results of that?
So that pilot program was delayed due to our deployment to the fires last year. And so the first 6 months were completed on the back half of last year, and we're currently waiting for coordination with ERG on either a meet and confer or meet and consult in order to complete a 12-month review of videos. And then once that 12 months is completed, we can present that to commission.
I have a follow-up question on that. I want to get to table number 3. Evidence discovered, the discovery rates of pretext traffic stops from April 1, 2022 to November 30th, 2025. When you see the narco-related, other weapons-related firearms, okay, I see that the narco-related is the highest type of evidence identified, but above that is 67.7% of pretextual stops where no evidence was obtained. Is that correct? Am I reading this correct?
You are reading that correctly, ma'am.
So my question then is, are these constitutionally protected stops? Are they arbitrary? Are they bias-based? Are they racial profiling based? It's a high percentage.
Yes, ma'am. So these are absolutely protected by the Constitution and the work that we're doing with it. So we have a reason to conduct the stop that is based off a traffic violation that's observed. The officers, by our policy, are doing more than what the Supreme Court required, and they're having to have it be intelligence-based. So they have a belief based off what's going on in their division, crime intelligence, that this person may have been or be involved in a crime moving forward. So it's absolutely in alignment with what we're allowed to do, but you are raising the issues that we frequently hear as pushback as to why we shouldn't be doing them. And the response to that that I believe is encouraging on the department side is that we also have a commensurate rate of warnings issued with these. The officers have done a tremendous job of recognizing the importance of the community caretaking doctrine so that when they come up to these cars, they believe that it may be related to a crime, rather than citing the person after determining that they aren't. They're using it as a learning opportunity for the lawful traffic stop and then releasing people with a warning. I believe that's reflective of what we're looking for because it's meant to be an investigative tool and not something that's to be punitive to the community beyond the time that has been taken for the stop.
Can you identify or give me an example of what the officer determined to be a lawful traffic stop in order for them to, in their belief that this person driving the car was involved in a crime? Can you give me the number, the percentage is boggling to me. It's concerning. So if you can give me an idea of what type of lawful traffic stop warrants a stop.
Okay, so to start with the reason the warranting the stop, again, we allow the officers to utilize any part of the California Vehicle Code. So they're observing a violation of the California Vehicle Code. That is the first thing that takes place. And that's what's allowing them to effect the stop. In terms of meeting the department standard for articulation of that you have something more, that can vary by the division. And so we will have divisions where officers will cite that they've been told this type of vehicle has been seen in the area and related to burglaries. That's what we normally see for burglary crews out on the west side or in Valley Bureau. You'll also have it where people are saying that this type of vehicle has been related to shootings in the area. So the officers provide that on their body-worn video. They will provide that in the disposition for the call. That is part of what is reviewed during the CompStat inspection process, is to make sure that they are providing an articulation that is, again, that standard of it has to be more than a hunch, it has to be actually informed. And so while I can understand that it's concerning that there's not evidence that's discovered here, this remains a tool for us when we are saying that it is not a vehicle that is yet in our warrant system. It is not because they recognize that person, that driver is on a flyer right now, but it is the officers making every effort that they can to be proactive in preventing crime based off of the information that they're receiving daily through roll calls, what they're getting through their hot sheets, what they're also receiving from their crime intelligence analysts who are saying that they're putting together data from across not only their division but other divisions in order to make sure the officers are well equipped to go out there each day and impact crime, acknowledging that our suspects don't care about divisional lines. So it's important that they're continuing to be advised of crime trends, not just in their own division, but the neighboring ones, and then endeavor to make stops that will allow them to identify those suspects and effect arrests, absent us responding to the scene and finding them there still in the act of the crime.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to now focus on table number 2. When you look at 2022, that seems to be the lowest percentage of pretextual stops, although, and you have the 4 bureaus listed, but the bureaus that have the highest percentage of pretextual stops are Central and the South, correct? When you go on to 2023, 2024, and you look at the same numbers, the pretextual percentages are very high compared to the other bureaus of West and the Valley. Although we know that the Valley since 2025, I think has had a tremendous increase of residential burglaries.
Yes, ma'am.
So, but you look at 2025, and you see that, again, it's the highest number of pretextual stops are in Central and in the South. So, and I think you've also mentioned that these stops, these pretextual stops, are really the belief of the officer that a California vehicle code violation has been violated, right? And
Yes,
that's
ma'am.
why they stop. But it makes, something doesn't add up to me. Something just doesn't add up. Is it racial profiling? Is it that bias, implicit, explicit bias that's in the report? I mean, how do you explain that disparity in the percentages of pretextual stops since 2022 to 2025 at the Central and the South Bureau?
So, ma'am, again, I'd like to stress that there are a number of tools that the department utilizes, and we encourage officers to use whatever is at their discretion in a lawful manner, in a manner that's compliant with policy. And so while you may see varies across bureaus, it becomes incumbent on the bureau leadership and the area leadership to decide which tools that they want to deploy. And then the officers themselves, there's no messaging that tells them that they have to do pretext stops, that they should or should not. There's not a value placed on them beyond that they are compliant with the law and policy. And so while we see those disparities, it's also important to note that there's also similar disparities of violent or person crime across the bureaus, where we see it concentrated in South and Central Bureau. And so officers going out there in order to make those stops are doing what we're looking for in order to be proactive of trying to apprehend suspects in order to base it off of the intelligence that they have. It is challenging because a lot of times people compare these numbers against each other, and what I like to encourage people in this discussion to focus on is what is the right percentage? Is there an appropriate percentage of pretext stops? Because when we are concerned just because there's a difference because one area is lower than the other, it begs the question, then what's the acceptable number? For our end, at least, on the policy side, it becomes making sure that the individual stops are within the law and are within policy.
Okay, I'm still troubled by the fact that the disparities may include some racial distributions here that are reflected in table number 2. I want to move on now to table number 1. When you talk about all stops, and yes, there's a significant decrease in stops since 2019. And it was, some factors were noted: COVID-19, reduced department personnel, policy changes on pretextual stops. I just want to know if the department can identify relationships between the lower rate of the stops and public safety outcomes, either on the crime side or on the traffic-related side.
Well, certainly we continue to have areas for improvement or opportunities for improvement on our collisions and the number of people that are dying through traffic collisions each year. That's why we do, as Commissioner Shields inquired, want to encourage officers to continue to remain productive in making traffic stops. It's not necessarily that they have to cite, but it's an educational opportunity, an opportunity to stop the behavior if it's of a traffic safety nature. In terms of a close correlation between reductions in stops and crime, that would be presumptive. There are a number of factors that go into our overall decrease in crime across all categories, which I think is a remarkable feat on the department's part as we continue to have fewer personnel available to us and stretched resources. So ultimately, it is an area that we continue to look to have officers make stops, but to, again, have them be as informed as possible. We recognize that there is significant concern from the community about the harm in any individual stop, the stress that may put people under. And so it's not about more or less. It certainly is to try to make sure that they are impactful, whether it is in traffic safety or as an investigative tool.
Thank you. Last question. Regarding community trust, and I think this is so important, has the department noted any improvements in community trust as a result of pretext stop violation implementation, or the policy, pretext stop policy implementation?
We've not narrowly tailored our surveys to seek feedback from the public about the pretext stop policy implementation relative to their feelings of public trust for the department. I believe we're concluding a contract that we had with Zen City that allowed us to get data back from the public and their feelings of things related to procedural justice, including their trust in the department. Those are generally positive. When you break it down towards people that have it, you use that Likert scale, so most of it's in neutral towards positive. But we cannot necessarily tie it straight to the pretext stop policy, absent conducting a survey that allows for that kind of question. Because I believe most of the public isn't necessarily aware of the change in 2022. It would require them to first know and then measure their feelings against that. But we do continuously seek public feedback through various mechanisms to talk about it in aggregate, because I think it's less for the public about knowing our policies versus knowing the outcomes and their feelings about their interactions with us.
Thank you, Captain White. Okay, Commissioner Scobin, you have any questions?
Yeah, thank you very much for the report and your detailed explanation on all these questions. Recognizing that this is going to City Council, I try to think of what might be more valuable for them, once they receive this. And on table number 2, the report outlines the traffic violation stops by bureau. And then table 3 showcases discovery rates by the evidence discovered. Is there a way to include a graph that showed the evidence discovered by bureau?
Yes. We can
And my
certainly-
thought process is recognizing, as we heard, it's a polarizing topic, et cetera. In my confirmation process, you hear a lot of officers feeling that it's a valuable tool for public safety, and you have elements of the community that, are very concerned about trust. So there's obviously a disconnect there. And so, I would think that it'd be beneficial for the council members to see by bureau, the different percentages of evidence discovery, because I think it helps, show the reality of 30% of pretext stops result in evidence discovered. That's also a big number. So I think it'd be helpful for them to see that information by bureau.
Not a problem, sir. I've added it to the list of tables to include in the report.
Thank you again.
I said either in this report or a future report, so I defer to the other commissioners if they want revisions to this one or have a separate report directly to the commission.
Do we need a revision, or do we just need a future report that may include that? Let's go, Joe?
I don't know if there's a mechanism to approve the report subject to the data being added that was discussed.
Your report?
I'm happy to add it, but the procedural side for the board, I'll defer.
I'm sorry?
You would either want it to come back or you approve this one and then you ask for a follow-up.
Yeah, I think what we want to do, I would prefer that we approve this one.
Okay.
And then in the future, near future, ask for this information that we've all talked about.
Understood, ma'am. And so I will include for the future one, racial distribution related to stops, time of day, comparison of the reason for the stops versus the outcomes, evidence discovered by bureau, and evidence discovered by race.
That's fine. Does that cover it? Does that cover? Okay, very well. Thank you very much for your report. All right, Madam Secretary?
Do we have a commissioner to make a motion?
There is a motion that the Board of Police Commission transmit the report to the City Council.
Is there a second?
I second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay, motion passes. Thank you. Next, we have agenda item 4B, the Inspector General's report relative to review of the department's foreign training activities.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. My name is Lisa Ridout. I'm the Assistant Inspector General over the Audit Section at the Inspector General's Office. Beside me to my left is Police Special Investigator Raj Patel, also from the Inspector General's Office. We're here to share findings from the Inspector General's review of the Department's foreign training activities. The Board of Police Commissioners directed this review in January 2024 in response to public concerns regarding LAPD's foreign training activities, including those conducted in Israel. The purpose of the review was to understand who attended foreign training, what training LAPD personnel participated in, and the cost of the training, and whether the department appropriately tracks and evaluates these activities. The OIG examined approximately 10.5 years of foreign training activity between January 2014 and August of 2024, including attendance at conferences, joint exercises, seminars, academic tours, and other engagements involving foreign entities. Based on documentation provided by the department, the OIG identified 117 foreign training activities involving 243 LAPD personnel during the review period. Most of this recorded travel occurred between 2021 and 2024. I'll now hand over to Investigator Patel, who will present our review findings and recommendations.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Finding number one, due to the department's record retention practices, there was insufficient data and documentation to evaluate the relevance and key takeaways of foreign training activities, particularly before 2021. The OIG could not verify whether some trips happened because the records were incomplete. Documentation prior to 2021 was missing and inadequate and lacked essential information about travel participation, cost, training content, making them unreliable for review. In 2021, department practice appeared to have changed as the department provided the OIG with more detailed documentation of foreign travel activities between 2021 and 2024. However, these documents lacked key takeaways from these events. Based on OIG research, it appears that nearly all of the documented activities appear to focus on bringing together law enforcement personnel, regional organizations, and several other participants to exchange knowledge on emerging crime trends, address challenges, and develop practices in the field of law enforcement. Finding number two, the department participated in training activities with Israel. However, due to limited available information, the OIG was unable to assess the full nature and extent of the training activities. Since 2014, 18 employees participated in 9 training activities in Israel, with total documented costs exceeding $87,000, largely funded by external or federal sources. Most attended Israel activities was in 2014 when the department sent 8 employees for a command and control CT event for executive development. It was funded by a federal grant for about $52,000. The OIG recognizes that participation in foreign and cross-national training activities has the potential to significantly strengthen international relationships and enhance officer skills and cross-cultural competencies. To make future reviews stronger and more useful, the department needs a better system to document and evaluate these activities. Due to limited documentation, the OIG could not fully assess the nature and scope of the tactical implications of trainings conducted in Israel. The department stated that it has not implemented tactics or policy changes based on foreign training. However, the OIG could not independently verify this due to documentation gaps. Finding number 3, the department does not have a systematic process to evaluate training activities with foreign entities when it comes to outside funded sources. So apart from the participants' brief travel and training benefit statements, there is no detailed training evaluations and, more importantly, no requirement to complete a travel and training benefit statement if the training was funded by an outside source. Since approximately 80% of foreign training is provided by outside funding, the lack of evaluation merits attention. Finding number 4, the department lacks safety and security procedures for personnel to attend training activities and events in foreign countries. The OIG did not identify any immediate security risks. However, it has highlighted the need for a more secure approach to manage department employees participating in foreign training activities and events. No security briefings, procedures, or policies were identified. The department lacks any process to assess potential security concerns or procedures of engagement with host nation partners or U.S. security personnel in foreign travel. Our recommendations are as follows. Recommendation number 1, ensure the existing electronic tracking system captures all pertinent data, including foreign funding sources, especially where foreign entity or organizations funded any portion of the travel, and a brief summary, the after-training evaluations reports, which leads to recommendations number 2. Require an after-training evaluation report for every foreign training activity to be completed by the participants and a copy maintained with the travel-related administrative records. The detailed after-training evaluation report should include key takeaways from the training and practical applications for the department operations, if applicable, and shall be completed regardless of funding source or reimbursement. And our third and final recommendation is establish a standardized security protocol for department employees who participate in any foreign training. These should include coordination with federal agencies, participant safety measures such as daily check-ins, and a process for vetting foreign contacts to address any security concerns.
Okay, well, that concludes our presentation, Commissioners. I just wanted to thank the department, specifically Deputy Chief Embrick and his staff, for their assistance throughout this review, and Investigator Patel and I, as well as representatives from the department, are here to answer any questions that you may have.
Commissioners, any questions?
Actually, I think 2 might end up being 3. So, thank you. The report indicated that there hadn't been a formal process. What was the process of selecting officers that went and participated in training?
So, Commissioners, before I start, if I could also introduce Senior Management Analyst to Juan Rodarte. He's the officer in charge of the post unit. They're responsible for processing all of the requests for travel authorities and also the storage of them. So the process for request, it comes in two methods. Many of the requests for travel authority that we do process, especially for overseas, are at the request of the Chief of Police, at that time Chief Moore. When he was requested to attend certain events, he would delegate that assignment and have an assistant chief or deputy chief attend on his behalf. And as far as other events, we were typically invited by outside entities. That is, pushed through an employee's chain of command. Our typical approval process is through the employee's chain of command. It goes up to their group or bureau, and then the next stop is it gets reviewed by the post unit, and then I have a responsibility reviewed through Training Bureau. Then it goes to my boss, the Director of Office of Support Services, and any foreign travel is ultimately approved by the Chief of Police.
So would it be fair to say then that the career trajectory, prior knowledge of the officer experiences, relationship to their current role within the department or potential future role is also part of the consideration, or
Yes, sir. Those selections are not taken lightly, and as you've heard, they go through several layers of review before we even consider approving it.
Are you able at this time, or is someone able at this time, to talk about or describe how we've incorporated what was learned from the past experiences anecdotally or specifically in terms of training or deployment or whatever, how the benefits might have accrued?
So I believe that the report kind of goes over kind of the limitations that we have. Unfortunately, when people do travel and they are on special assignments, they're not required at this time to report back to us as far as how they're implementing what training that they received. So one of the recommendations is for them to be required to do so, and we're in general agreement with that.
And that I appreciated reading the recommendation because just in my experience, when I attend educational conferences, part of the responsibility that I have when the college or the other or an external source of funding is to document what I participated in, what I think the benefit is to the college or to the district, and then to make sure that I've got that information sent to the appropriate folks. So it's not just go and feel like you've learned something, it's go and talk about and incorporate what you've learned. And it's fine. I have no further questions at this point. Thank you.
Commissioner?
No, I appreciate the report, and I agree with the Inspector General's recommendations on, you know, how to have a bit more transparency and tracking of the training and the effectiveness, et cetera. So I think as a, you know, having a goal to be the best in every area, you know, training should have no borders. So glad to see we're doing it.
Commissioner Shields?
Thank you for the report and the recommendations. And I'd like to hear from the department a little bit about, it seems like you take the Inspector General's recommendations in principle, but think that they should be tweaked in some way. So I want to make sure that when we are approving the report, we make it clear like what recommendations we are wanting done and implemented. The one area that I thought was helpful that, you know, in terms of like an employee benefit statement that's usually required for if you're trying to get refunded, you know, but if someone else, another entity is paying for that travel, that is not required. Given that, you know, I imagine that when folks are traveling for the department, they are getting paid their salary, right? So you may not be paid for travel expenses, but I do think making sure that the trips are in fact productive and an important part of the mission of the department. I think having some kind of response or statement like that would be helpful. And even just the chart that the Inspector General's office prepared in terms of like what are the topics of the trainings and things like that, I think it's helpful to know because I imagine there is a lot of benefit to having foreign travel and foreign contacts and all of that. But how can the department implement some type of kind of benefit statement even for travel that did not require expenses to be reimbursed to the employee?
So, you know, I'll go ahead and start it off. So like Mr. Rodarte indicated, so like we're in general agreement with the recommendations as of this report. So number one, so I know there were some difficulties in, you know, finding information that was more than 3.5 years old. And part of that was because the only requirement that we did have was that the government, that our records retention policies were dictated by the department's record retention schedule. And they come in front of the Board of Police Commissioners every once in a while and destruct records in accordance with Division 12, Chapter 1 of the Los Angeles Administrative Code, standard record keeping minimum standards. So LA Administrative Code Section 12.3B4 establishes a 2-year minimum requirement, and the department typically keeps records on hand at divisions for 2 years. They're moved to storage, and from storage, they remain there for a minimum of 5 years, and they're destroyed. So we recognize to make audits, over this amount of time, we'd have to establish some type of record-keeping system. So we've already taken their recommendation, and I think since fiscal year 2025, 2026, so it's as of this July, Juan?
Correct, yeah. We've implemented just about all of the recommendations from one. And obviously we can't do the benefit statement yet because it's not implemented department-wide. But that's what we're in discussions right now because it would be more at a divisional level. They would go and debrief their division as subject matter experts. And then they would supply us with maybe kind of a copy to store with the record. And then we can data track what the outcome of that was. But we're in discussions as to the implementation because obviously this is a department-wide, not just a training bureau issue. So that's where we're kind of trying to figure out exactly how to implement this and ensure that we do receive the data at the end of the day.
So, and to close out, like in regard to recommendation 3, and that was security protocols for department employees who participate in any foreign training. And, you know, and we're in general concurrence with that as well too. So without creating undue administrative burden, without creating additional paperwork, so we're going to consider and forward up a training bureau notice, which will direct employees to who are traveling outside of the United States to annotate in their request for travel authority that they have queried the State Department Travel Advisory Report, and if it's considered by the State Department as a level 1 country or a recommendation to exercise normal precautions, that they're aware of it. They also need to indicate that their commanding officer is aware of it too. Any travel to a level 2, which exercise increased caution and be aware of increased risks and safety and security, they will make a note of that in their request for travel authority and also consult with CTSOB for further information. And I'm only aware of one level 3 country that we have traveled to, and that would be Israel. But that level 3 did not exist during our last travel period, which was in 2022. So we are wholeheartedly going to, recommend that those are implemented and codified as part of our policy.
Okay. Thank you. Anything further? Okay, I want to thank you. I'm a big proponent of all the benefits that travel abroad brings, and I think this department traveling to all these countries and not only learning from the country that you visit, but also getting this great benefit giving that benefit to the country because, I mean, LAPD going to Israel or going to Mexico or going to Canada, anywhere, I think increases on our part and on their part a level of sensibility and sensitivity between the countries and increases the level of knowledge of their culture. And since we are such a multicultural city, I think these travels abroad really benefit everybody in the department. So thank you very much. All right, I think we're ready to end this. Thank you.
Do we have a motion to approve the Inspector General's report?
Yes, there is a motion to approve the Office of the Inspector General's review of the department's foreign training activities.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay, motion passes. Thank you. With no other items on the agenda, do we have a motion to adjourn the meeting?
There is a motion to adjourn.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Well, a meeting's adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Secretary.